Okay, so for this video, I just wanted to talk about this idea that I've had recently, which is this idea that basically, like when you look at like the loosh farm, like reincarnation trap information, right? That, like there's this key theme that basically like this matrix or like these entities, like the in the astral plane, are essentially feeding off of our loosh or our energy, basically. And so like the whole idea that I'm getting is like, okay, like what I'm thinking about, like, okay, our magical abilities, basically like psychic abilities, like remote viewing or astral projection, or being able to see into the future. And like, I even believe that like the superpowers that you see in like movies are 100% real. Like magic is 100% real. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of talk about was this idea that loosh might be the key to our magical abilities. Like if we are able to essentially keep the, instead of project, because it's almost like a leech feeding off of your blood, right? Like, so blood isn't necessarily the issue whenever it comes to like a leech to being attached to your circulatory system, right? So this idea that basically, like, when you see blood leave your system, that's when it becomes a problem, right? Like when you cut yourself and the blood leaves your system, if it's not self-contained, that's when it becomes a problem. So blood necessarily isn't the enemy, it's the fact that blood leaving your system that it becomes, a problem, right? And so I'm thinking that this is pretty much the same thing that's happening with loosh. That it's not that our energy isn't, that our emotional energy specifically isn't necessarily the enemy, but like the fact that it's leaving our system, the fact that it's being projected, that's when it becomes loosh. That when it gets projected out as a waste product, that's when like these entities in the astral plane essentially come in like vultures to essentially consume that energy. And so I mean, you look at like how athletes work, right? Like they use anger, they use resentment, they use sadness, they use like the negative emotions, but they use it in a way that enhances their physical strength in a fight, right? And so I'm thinking about like that, but I'm also thinking about like if you look at cases of like mind over matter, like when like teenagers have like start like moving plates with their mind, when they get like and when they get like emotionally high strung, when they get stressed out, right? Like that's when, like in these cases of poltergeist activity, right? Like when they get like stressed out or whatever, that's when like the plates in the kitchen start flying around, and like that's when like you have like the objects rattling all around the house and just doing this all on the table, right? Just like shaking around, right? And so basically, I think that loosh might be, like, if we learn how to essentially metabolize our own loosh, if we learn how to digest our own loosh, our own emotional energy, that might actually be the key to our magical abilities. Basically, that if we can learn how to like metabolize 100% of our own loosh, right, instead of having like the loosh leave our system, right, in the same way that if a leech latches onto your circulatory system, right? Like the parasite being latched onto your circulatory system, and the fact that some of the blood that you have is leaving your system, right? Like that's what the core issue is. It's not necessarily the blood that's the problem, because we need blood to circulate oxygen across our systems, but basically but basically it's like the parasite's the problem. And I believe that this is the same thing that's going on with like the loosh harvesting, that it's not necessarily the energy, but it's the fact that it's not being self-contained and metabolized, right? And this is interesting because it's almost like, can you metabolize anger and turn it into like telekinetic power, right? Can you, like, if you get angry enough and you know how to use that angry energy, can you use it to like move an object with your mind? If you get, it's almost like when people use sex drive and like sexual energy and stuff like that, when they do like boxing, or when they do like when they do things like work out and stuff like that, like to enhance their performance in sports. I believe it's much the same thing, where it's like if you learn how to use your emotional energy and metabolize 100% of it, I do believe that that's sort of the key to getting to like to our powers of like because I 100% believe that like the mind over matter interaction, right? Like the ability to move objects with their mind, the ability to, yeah, if you look at shamans, right, like their ability to essentially control the weather. I mean, you look at Jesus, you look at how he's like he mastered the winds and the waves. Like that ability, I believe, has a lot to do with the energy that we would consider loosh, but that if we learn how to self-contain it and metabolize it ourselves, if we learn how to feed off of our own energy 100%, right, yet again without ejecting any of it as a waste product, I do believe that that's like a key component to our lost abilities, to our lost extrasensory abilities, to things like remote viewing, things like being able to see through time, things like being able to move objects with our mind, being able to manipulate matter, being able to telepathically communicate. That working with that energy might be like a huge component. I do believe it's a huge component. That like that emotional energy is what this matrix is feeding off of. So if you learn how to use that instead of having that energy being chucked out as a waste product, you're like, and you're just scrolling through YouTube shorts, or you're watching the football game, right? The bread and circuses, right? Instead of doing that and just be like, or you're like you're watching the TV or something, and something funny happens, you're like, oh my god, this is so funny. Just instead of doing that, if you learn how to just keep the power inside and you learn how to metabolize it, right? When I say metabolize, it's almost like burning calories when you're working out. It's like burning calories when you run. If you learn how to use the energy, then I believe that that's when the crazy stuff starts happening. If you just keep the power inside. So I'm just, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that concept of like loosh as like essentially like a magic, like as a magical energy system. It's almost like you look in fiction and they use chi, or they use like, if you look at Naruto, they use chakra. If you look at Jujutsu Kaisen, they use like cursed energy, right? And that's actually a great example. Is that like what they do, what sorcerers do in Jujutsu Kaisen, right? Like the anime, right? Is that they metabolize negative emotion into cursed energy, and then they use cursed energy to do all their cursed techniques and like to like cast their spells and whatever, right? And so you have like chakra in Naruto, you have cursed energy, you have like life force, chi, ki, or like you have ki in Dragon Ball Z, right? But yeah, I'm just thinking like that's something that is a I believe is like a huge thing to sort of understanding all this. That I think that if we're looking at potential solutions to the reincarnation trap, potential solutions to the soul trap and stuff like that, then basically this idea of using all of our emotional energy and basically being able to metabolize our own loosh, instead of it having it leave our system as a waste product. If we learn how to like keep it inside and digest it, right, like burning calories, then maybe that could give us all of those abilities that we look at in television and film. And it's crazy because you look at like superhero movies, and it's hard not to self-insert. You look at Superman, right, and it's almost like you look at that and you think, wow, that's how things should be, right? It's like, oh, we should be able to fly. We should have super strength, right? We should be able to move stuff with our minds. Like we should have these like super speed. Like we should have these abilities. And we self-insert and we're like, dang, I wish I had those abilities. And I think that that's something in the collective unconscious that's sort of telling us that, oh, okay, these abilities are real. Look for them, find them. And there's also this other thing too that you see in both like Marvel and DC. You look at the Avengers, you look at like the Justice League, right? It's like they're always fighting off like an alien invasion, typically from another dimension, which is exactly what we're experiencing right now with these Archon entities, with these reptilian entities, right? So I think that that's definitely something that I've been getting. I mean, that's something that I've been getting a download on for sure. That that loosh is the key to our psychic abilities. That's the key to our powers. That if we learn how to keep it inside of our system instead of experiencing like blood loss to like some random leeches, right? If we learn how to circulate our blood, so to speak, within our own system, right, and not have any of it leave our system, that might be the key to essentially becoming Neo, right? You unplug from the matrix. You're no longer powering the matrix. You're powering yourself, right? You bend the spoon by bending yourself, right? I mean, that's sort of unrelated, but and that has more to do with like the nature of perception, right? But yeah, I mean, I definitely believe that loosh might be like that digesting loosh specifically, our psychic energy, right? That might be the key to humanity's lost abilities, right? Like the abilities that we we so desperately want and like we look for in these superhero movies. That might be a reflection of what we should be looking for now, right? So yeah, just wanted to make a video about that. Yeah. Yeah, I need to work on an outro. um, yeah. Um, just want to make a video about that. Yeah.